So the name of the session is Navigating the White Supremacy Culture through an Immigrant Lens. And the reason why I'm like having this workshop is because first, I'm an immigrant, it's obvious. And I would like to give you a little bit of glimpse of what it feels like to be an immigrant to the US, like especially in like Trump presidency when I got here first. And like, because I have like this little bit different perspective from some of you who might lived here for your entire life. And like, you might not have this like different perspective of like navigating the cultures. So I would like to share like my problems which I faced when I got to the US. Like, and little disclaimer, it's not like true for every immigrant. Like, I don't want to speak for everyone, but just it's like my journey and like my story. So thank you so much for taking your time to listen to my story. And I would like to like introduce myself. My name is Altine Bitbossen. I am the WhatCom student and I work for Intercultural Center, and I moved here to US from Kazakhstan, and I'm gonna share my screen and show you a little bit about my country. Can you see that? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
So as I said, like I'm from Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan is the Central Asia, the most like unknown spot for most of Americans. Like I got asked questions like where are you from? Where is that? Like, and then so I have to go and say like, hey, like we are between like Russia and China, so it's like a really weird spot between like two superpowers, and we are ninth largest country in the world, but the population is just like 40 million, which is not a lot. And like, oftentimes when I say Kazakhstan, people go like, Borat. And I'm like, yeah, he's my brother. I just like to like joke around. And so I grew up and was raised in Kazakhstan until I turned like 21, and until my last year at the local university. So I went to one of the local universities and decided to study computer science. So it was my last year like at the college where when I decided to go abroad and like like experience like different cultures. So I applied to one of the German government scholarship and I got accepted, and it was like amazing experience for me. So a little bit about the program. We had like almost like 200 international students like from all around the world. So like starting from Asia, Europe, like Africa, like Australia, like anywhere in the world. So it was a huge group of people. We just like over the summer we mingled together, we showed the culture, like tried the different foods, like we partied, like we lived in a dorm, so we had like shared like common kitchen where we could like cook and get to know each other. So it was fun. And I felt like it was so cool, and it's like inspired me so much. So I decided to go and study abroad. So, and also during that time I had like little trip to Europe. So these like some of the pictures from like Paris, Switzerland, and Czech Republic. I've traveled to like 7 different countries in Europe. I was so lucky, so I could like just like get my friends like travel, have some Euro trip. I'm sorry I'm giving so much details because it's like so important to like I'm connecting those details with the later story. And so once I visited the Europe, I decided to go to South Korea, and I applied for my master's, studied in English, got my thesis like 150 pages, like written in English. And like during my time in South Korea, I had like so many American friends. I had like all, again, like international friends from like England, like Australia, New Zealand. And like I was pretty happy. And that was the moment when I met my boyfriend, and he moved to US. And then he was like, do you want to go with me? So that's how I followed, and I moved to US, and I came here like back in September 2016, like 2 months before, like, Trump was elected. So So I was like this, like open-minded. I was like so excited to go explore the world, like, meet new people, like learn the new cultures. And so when I came to US, I still remember like my first day. So like imagine like I'm new to country, like I don't know anyone. I don't drive, like um, so I don't have a car, so I have to take a bus. And like I landed here straight to Bellingham to welcome. So my boyfriend was like in Seattle. He met me at the airport, but like he drove me back here. But like, I was all by myself in Bellingham. So like I wasn't like too much like tech friendly to use like Google Map or something at that time. But I got lost basically on my first day, like on the way to school. And I still remember like interacting with the first stranger in Bellingham. So like, I'm like, I got off like from the wrong bus station. I'm like in the middle of somewhere. I'm like panicking. I'm like, I don't know what to do, where to go. Like, so I decided to like ask for help from a stranger. And like I thought it was a normal thing because like I've been to so many situations like where, like, for example, in Germany, I also came to one of the main cities, but then I had to take a train and travel to like to the small town where my university was. And like it was so complicated. I had like zero German, so I was using English, and like I didn't know how to buy a ticket. I didn't know like how to, navigate the station. So I just stopped, like again, like talk to someone like on the street. And like the lady I talked to, she had like limited English, but I was so shocked what she did. She held my hand, she took me to the security, and she explained in German everything, like where I needed to go, everything. And that security again held my hand, went to the like ticket station. He explained to the cashier, like they helped me to buy a ticket. And then he made sure, he walked me again back to the train station. And he put me in a train and talked to the person inside of the train and said, like, make sure she gets off at this, station. And then like make sure you transfer her like to the like other train. I was like, my mind was like blown away. I was like, wow. And then there was like another situation in South Korea where I was in Seoul. It's a huge city, so I was lost. And then again, like a zero Korean. I use English, and then I go to like I was lost. So again, I stopped, like talked to this lady, and she called a taxi for me from her phone. And like she made sure, like, I would reach like where I was going, and she paid for my taxi. And I was like, whoa, I don't even know like who like she was. So like I had like such kind of like amazing experience, like, Europe, like Asia. So when I came to US, like why I like point out about this like experience, because like it was, like my first impression about the US, like the first ever stranger I talked. So I stopped this lady. She's like mid-age, like white person, and I go, hi, excuse me, I'm just new. I'm lost here. So could you help me like to find the way, or like could you tell me like which bus to take? And I'm gonna try to like show her face. She goes, huh? And like and I see the face like with such a grimace which says like, don't bother me. Which is like, I don't want to talk to you. And I'm like, oops. And I'm like, I thought like, American people are famous for being like, so polite and like friendly and helpful. And I thought like, uh-oh, looks like it's a stereotype. And then, and she just like completely ignored me. She just said, I don't know, and just like ignored and like walked away. And I was like standing there, like again, I don't know who to ask, where to go. And like, so I decided to talk to like bus driver. Somehow I found my way back home, but it was weird. And I thought like maybe she's having a bad day, like not everyone is the same, so maybe there's been a problem. And then again, like on the Next day again, something like I need to get somewhere, like on the bus. I talk, I believe she was a student, and she goes, she like, I say like, hey, excuse me, could you help me, go blah blah blah. And she's like, what was that? Again, with such kind of face. And I'm like, what's going on, like, why? Like, I started to think like maybe it's my problem, maybe like I'm saying something like wrong, or like maybe I'm doing something wrong. So like you start like internalizing, and you start like blaming yourself, and then like it kind of caused me this like inferiority complex. So I started to think like maybe it's because of my English is not so good, or like my accent, or like why is that. But interestingly, like before coming to US, like as I said, I have like so many friends, like from different parts of the world. And like I thought my English was good enough to communicate, and I thought like at least like the English wasn't getting in the way of like communication also. So, but like the reality showed me, like when I first got to the US, like I had so much problem like communicating to people. So like even some like when you have like group discussions in a college, like you would try to say something, and you could see like people's face, like they look puzzled, or like I don't know what she's saying, but okay, that kind of face. that was like that was like getting like it was really getting to me, and like it was making me so upset. And I had to like question who I was, and like how people see me, and like you know how people treat me. Like I was new, I didn't know anything about like racism, I didn't know anything about the system. It was later when I started to like dig into those like issues. So so I really lived and believed like it was a problem with me. And until like this first, like one of the first classes which I took, I had to do the presentation at Whatcom. And like all my classmates, they had to write like little cards with the like remarks, some kind of suggestions to my presentation. And one of the comments was, change your accent. And I was like, well, I wish I could. Well, and like, and teacher took a moment, and she explained, this is the accent, which it's not something you can really change. And then at Vodcom, I studied early childhood education, and I wanted to become a teacher because I like small kids, I like playing with them. I also like the psychology, and like to see like how people grow. So in one of my classes, I shared that, oh, I would like to be an elementary school teacher. And like one of my classmates, she was already an elementary school teacher, and she goes like, you can do that. And I'm like, why? And she goes, because you have an accent. And I'm like, really? And she goes, kids in the elementary school, they start learning, like they start developing the English, so they have to hear the proper English. So just because of your accent, you can't do that. And like it made me so mad, like why people would tell me like what I can, and like why I can what I cannot do. And it was more upsetting because like she was a teacher, someone who was supposed to be like teaching about like diversity, inclusion, and like all the pluralism and stuff. And I was thinking like, oh my god, what she's teaching to the kids, like if she's telling me this kind of things to like she's telling that kind of stuff to adults, like what she's teaching to kids. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And that was the moment like when I started to like learn about all this, like all the social problems, all the racism and stuff. Like before that, I thought like people were so nice, like like there's no problem, like they don't treat me any different. And I think one of the situation which I like to share also, I was in downtown in Co-op, probably you know that. So in Co-op there are like different dishes which you can like test. So there was like one soup, I was trying it out, and like I can see there was like one old lady standing, and she was like testing the same soup, and I could feel like she wants to like, speak to me because we are like, it's like testing the same food. So like she kind of wants to talk to me. And like I looked at her, smiled, and she goes, "Do you understand English?" And I'm like, "Yes, you can talk to me." And she goes, "Well, because some of you don't." And I'm like, "Well," I felt like it was like it wasn't like open like racism, but it's like passive aggression, I guess. And then like one of the moments which I had was I was learning driving. So, and my driver, he was like like old white man, and we were having this like nice conversation. I'm driving, and he goes, don't get me wrong, but I don't like immigrants because immigrants come and they take away from our welfare system. They like always use all the benefits, and like we are Americans, we have to, work hard and pay the taxes and all blah blah blah. And I'm like, and you are telling this to an immigrant, you know? Like my first reaction was like I just wanted to stop the car, just like walk away and like not to interact with this person anymore. But and then he keeps going like, oh, all those immigrants, they come and they try to change the system. So like if you don't like the country, just leave. Why do you want to like make like my country like yours, and blah blah blah. And I go like, well, but like your ancestors also did it at some point. They also came here at some point in the history, and they also did the same. Like they thought they have this power and you know all the ability to change the country and like set their own rules and like colonize the people. So I think you're in the same boat. And he had like nothing to say. But I mean, like I still hear like, so before the election, like I met this like one stranger lady who said like, oh, just pray like Trump doesn't get elected again because we don't like you guys. And like it's true for all of us, but we don't say it out loud, but like we have it in our hearts. So like I'm sure like so many people are gonna like vote for him. And I was like, well, uh-oh. So I was gonna say like when we say like I oftentimes hear like in this like Northwest, like we don't have racism here, we are good, like people just try to like cover up and they don't talk about it much, I guess. So that was like the what like one of my experiences. And the second experience which I had, it was with my name. So it was interesting, like when I got here, like nobody could even say my name. So, and as I mentioned before, like I've been to so many different countries. I've never had like any problem like that. So what like with friends like from all those like international friends, like I say, hi, my name is Alternate, and they said, they just repeat Alternate, okay, nice to meet you, and like and go. So there've never been a problem. But like when I got to the US, it was like, so you say, hey, my name is Alternate, and people go, I'm sorry, how do you say that? But like they like they choke, they stumble over it, and then they say like, oh, I'm so sorry, how do you say that again? And then they ask again, and like, so it takes up like good 5 minutes just to learn my name. I appreciate people taking time and like learning about my name. And like I feel like people are so much afraid of like making a mistake and like offend the person. So that's why like it's big deal. But it creates this like weird uncomfortable moment for the person, because he's trying to like learn your name and like say it correctly, and for me also. But like just imagine if you meet like 30 people and you have to go through the same thing every time. So it was like frustrating for me. And I was like, like I was getting almost like sociophobic because like like, oh my gosh, again, new person, I have to go through all of this, like explaining my name, and like, and like, and next time they meet me, they again forgot my name, so like they cannot remember, and then again everything starts over, and I'm like, oh no, like so it was really affecting like my identity and who I was. And I was like, my self-esteem was going down, like my self-confidence was going down. I was feeling isolated and lonely because like I don't have any friends here. Just imagine like being new to like new place. And like what I decided to do, I chose like American sounding name. I went by Emmy. Hi Angela. I chose like American sounding name. I chose the the simplest, the like the most common, Amy. And like I guess like some people still know me by Amy. So, but it made my life so easy. You have no idea. You just say like, "Hi, I'm Amy. Hi, Amy. Nice to meet you," and all gone. Like you just like have this conversation, like this like strange moment, and I thought, oh, this is cool. So I was going with this name for about like a year or so, until, but I could still feel it affects my identity because like it wasn't my real name. So I like my name, right? So like, and I would like to be called by my name, but like just because like people had like problems saying it, so I decided to go by Amy. And oh, but by the way, like nobody ever like at Starbucks or somewhere can like get my name, how to spell it right. So like I just use the nickname. Or like at the doctor's office, when they have to like call out your name, like people just like don't have enough courage to read it. So they decided to leave me without a name. So it's just like, hey, or something like that, like where I can hear like someone else is like called by name, but like I'm just like, hey, how are you? And like. So it feels like, for me, like I know it's a foreign name. I know, like I appreciate like if you make a mistake, it's okay. Like but I would like you to like to try to read it to your best ability. It doesn't matter if you say it wrong, like I don't get offended, but I don't want to be like referred as hey, or like or just left out without a name. So I would ask like anyone, like if you have like this kind of like foreign name, like just try to say it, like to the best of your ability. And I think like everyone knows, like you're not perfect, you can make mistakes, but you like, I would really love to hear like my name when people like address me by name, you know what I mean? And so I was going by Amy for almost a year, until I applied for student life. And shout out to Heidi. And like there was like confusion about my name, like which one should I use? And she asked me like, so do you want me to call you Emmy or alternate? Hi. And like, I was like vulnerable enough to share like what I felt. So, and I told her the truth, like, of course I would like to be called alternate because that's who I am and that's what my name is. But because I had like this, little like small experiences which thought like I don't want to go through again. So I decided to like go by Amy. And she took time and she was like, hey, listen, this is your name, this is your identity, this is who you are, and you shouldn't be caring what people like can do or cannot do. So like if you think you should be going by alternate, just use it and do it. So like you shouldn't be caring, like if people cannot say it, it's their problem. That's what she said. And I was like, that was the moment when I realized, yeah, that's me, and like I should use my real name. And it just something clicked in my head. And since then I became so proud to have my name. And like whenever I introduce myself, I say it like with so much pride in it and like with so much confidence. So I guess like that was like life-changing moment and like in shaping my identity, and thanks to Heidi again. Yeah, so I was, yeah, that was the main thing which I wanted to share with you. So if you have like any questions to me.
Is it alright if I say something?
Yeah, sure.
I just wanted to say thank you. My name is Satya, and I'm half Indian. My name is Indian, and I recently started telling people that don't put effort into learning my name that they can call me Tay, and it's a lot easier. But like what you said, it really is very meaningful because it's just like it's my name, and people should put effort into learning it, and I shouldn't. It's nice to hear that because I always thought when I was growing up like my name must be really hard, and it's not that hard. It's 2 syllables. It does take a minute, but like, and it's a foreign name, but it doesn't take that long to learn, and people should put the effort in to learn it. Like, I have friends who don't say it right, who I've known for years, and it was really inspiring to hear like your story. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I've recently talked to one of the girls. She was an immigrant also when she came here as a kid, and like we've talked about this, and she says like nobody can ever say my name correctly. That's one thing, but she also said like she had so many like friends who said like you're kidding, that's not your name. Like are you serious, for real? You know, somebody would ask those kind of questions, and she was like, why would I like lie about my name? Why I would like even, you know, joke about my name? So why would you even assume, you know? So, and I think like one of the, like we had the conversation with Heidi, and she said it was interesting to like hear my perspective, because like she's been reading an article about like if you want to like honor, you know, the like American Asian people, like it was the AAPI month, so like start from like learning their names. So yeah, I guess it's important to know like everyone's name and like try to say like, you know, as correctly as you can. I know like every like language has its own sounds, so like every like, you know, language has its own syllables and stuff. But what I was trying to say, it was interesting because like I've lived in Europe, I've lived in Asia, I had like so many international friends, but nobody ever had any problem saying my name. It was so interesting, so weird when I got here and like people cannot say it. So that was like one thing which is like, which probably most of you don't know, but like that's what we like go through.
Can I share something
Mm-hmm.
about the name again?
Yeah,
So,
sure.
I have the exact same experience about my name, but it's more come from internally. Like there was a time when, well, I still remember that time. It was the beginning of the pandemic, and you know, the pandemic is starting from China, which is Asia, and there's a lot of talk like from that, and I feel like people starting to focus too much on the origin without thinking about the solution, and the story being, to me, the story being going too far to the point where it's not about the health, um the health concern, but about race. And it's really make me feel like being just an international student in the United States, I feel so isolated, and I feel um I feel shame in a way, and that was in the past. I overcome it right now, but it's still it's truly an interesting experience to me. And at that point, I was thinking, I don't want people to know that that is my name. Like, even though I look Asian, I don't want people to address that as something bad. And I try to hide myself. I try to pick like an English name because I just don't want to expose myself, like expose. And again, I met Heidi. I worked with her and she asked me, oh, I see your name changed. Because at that point I starting to use my English name, and she asked me about that. And in a moment when she asked me, which one do you prefer me to call you? And at that moment, I feel so empowered that I told her, please call me Chow, because that is my name. Like, it is my identity. Because I believe it's the same for any culture, that your name has a specific meaning. Is not just about a language, it is about expectation that your family, especially about your family value that that you carry on. So it means a lot of things. It is not just it's not just a label. Like, it is not just simply a label. It is your identity, it's your value. Is I think it's meant everything. That's why we have different name. So, but when I go to Starbucks or somewhere else, like something not really important, I use my English name because it just makes the process quicker. But anything that involves in legal documents, I prefer to use my real name because it would make it clearer and faster in that way. But I just really want to say thank you because I have never heard anyone talk about that during any workshop about racism or even micro I forgot a word, I'm sorry, microaggression. Yeah, but yeah, I just want to say thank you because it's really meaningful. Like, it's important to talk about that.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. So, like, one of the issues, the first one which I share, and like probably Angela missed it, it was like, it was my English and the accent. And it's so interesting because, like, as I said, I have like, I work with like British people. I work with like, I have friends from like Australia, so many like native English speakers, and they never had any problem like communicating. So before coming to US, I thought my English was pretty good. And like, I understand, like, I'm never gonna sound like a native, like, starting like from the sentence structure, like word choice. But it wasn't something which is like, you know, the language wasn't something which would get in the way of communication. So interesting thing which I experienced here, like, yeah, as I said, like my first month, everybody would just like, what did you say? Like, can you say that again? Like, it was interesting. So like, I could see people don't get what I'm saying, and it was like affecting me, and it was like hurting me also. And but like, from as someone who learned like Korean from zero in South Korea, I just want to share like my experience. So like, when I just say like a couple of sentences, hey, my name is Altine, like nice to meet you in Korean, people are so much appreciative. They say like, oh, your Korean is so good. Like, it doesn't mean, like I'm speaking like perfect language, but like, they try to like respect, and like they try to take a moment and like, try to listen to what you say, like, because like it's being like showing the respect and like showing, the compassion and humanity, as like as in here what was happening oftentimes, like, like, it's already so difficult to try to speak like another language, because you have to like, like switch between these languages. It takes like so much mental effort, and you're trying to say something, and in response, oftentimes I was getting, as I said before, like, their face would say like, so you get this like non-verbal clues, like, I don't know what she's saying, but like, okay, anyway. you know so it was making me like so mad. At some point I felt like, you know, come on, like I'm trying to speak your native language. Why don't you understand? You know, like you understand the children who is developing the language, but like you always keep asking me what I said, like, you know, like because like I had experience of teaching Russian to like Peace Corps volunteers. And like if when someone tries to speak my language, I like, you know, like even with like my body's like posture, with like my facial expression, I try to show that I support that person, and I encourage that person to speak and learn, because the way you learn the language is like when you practice it. But like in the community, when you oftentimes like, you know, get a message like we don't understand you, it's not encouraging to like speak and practice the language. I don't know if that makes sense, but like, I mean, like school was wonderful, like everyone is so supportive, like, but like when you go outside of the school, like, you know, go outside of that circle, it was really difficult to try to communicate with someone. And like I get it, it's because of like, you know, cultural differences, like different views, and like as I said, like the way how I use the words, how I use the sentences. But still, like, isn't it something which like you as a person should think like, you know, this person is trying to say something, why don't I like just take time and, you know, like, and just listen?
That makes complete sense. Yeah, and I teach Spanish, and so, you know, working with students also learning a language. And I remember as a student of Spanish living in Mexico, and the culture and people being so, you know, willing to work with my, you know, flawed Spanish. It makes a huge amount of difference. That's exactly what you need. And sometimes, you know, Americans will just not be, I don't know if not, you know, not as multilingual of a society, that it's so monolingual, even though there's lots of different speakers here, but, you know, usually not, you know, learning a second, third language isn't an integral part of the curriculum, like reading or writing or math. And then also sometimes, of course, bias plays into that a lot of times, you know, we go in with a bias, whether we think, whether we're going to make an attempt to communicate with that person, whether we want to make that effort, or we're just going to be kind of a lazy listener, because you hear about that with other speech too. Like I've done different research like on African American vernacular English, and people will say, I can't understand anything they're saying. It's like, really? Really? You can't understand anything they're saying? Or are you just not wanting to because of, you know, bias and prejudice and racism and already assumptions that you're going into that conversation with? And it reminded me like the beginning of class every quarter, you know, you get the list of students in your class, you know, and you read their names. And of course, there's some that are harder for you to read, you know, but then you like try. And I always feel badly if I mispronounce their name. And I always say, please correct me, please correct me. You know, and let me know if you have a preferred name. And every once in a while, students who have a name which they might think is harder to pronounce, or maybe that I mispronounce, then they will and say, oh, it's okay, you can just call me Amy. But I always have that moment like, wait, like, are you sure you don't need to be doing it just to accommodate me? Like, and I'm sorry, like, you know, that I feel bad, like, oh no, I mispronounced it. And now you're like switching your name, like, I'll try to. And so sometimes in that moment, but then I don't want to tell them like obviously you can't switch your name, because I want them to choose too. But I have that moment a little bit like, oh no, don't be giving up a part of you that you don't want to be also. Well, thank you for letting me talk.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think like it's like rooted into like perfectionism, which is also like one of the characteristic of like white supremacy culture. Like people try to like, you know, be perfect, but like as I said, like, and try not to offend like other people. That's what's like that's what I'm saying. Like it was so interesting. Like nobody ever like, you know, had like any problem with my names. Like as I said, like I lived in like this like different parts of the world, and like, and it was so interesting when you come here, like nobody could even say it. I'm like, oh. Yeah, so And one of the things which I wanted to share, like, which was interesting, like from my perspective, being like an outsider. So like people fear of open conflict, which is like also like characteristic of like white supremacy culture, is like, so how the way how I experienced it, like when I got like my first job, like, you know, I was learning how to do it, and like when it was, you know, you make mistakes, and like if you miss something, like people would go and like talk to the supervisor straight, and like, you know, like kind of like escaping me, which like I thought it would be cool if you let me know, like, you know, like we are on this like same level, so you just came, like it wasn't something big like a mistake. I was just like, you know, forgetting to do some stuff which I was supposed to do, and like, but I was still learning about it, and like, you know, how to do my job properly. So if you could just came and reminded me and say like, hey, I think you forgot about this, you know, like it's not a big deal, but like they would go straight to the supervisor and complain. And like as a foreigner, I never like understood why is that, why, like what's the problem, you just, you know, walk to me, like talk to me, like, you know, like let's solve it on the spot. You know what I mean? But like I guess I get like they think it's not their like problem to, you know, to fix me or something like that, so like they have to like, you know, go let the supervisor talk to, which I feel like it takes away from like efficiency sometimes, because like it would be easier, you know, if like the person just walked to me and said like, hey, you know, I think you're missing this thing, like you should be doing this, instead of like, you know, she goes to supervisor, and the supervisor calls me next day, and then, you know, like she tells me what to do, and like we are like wasting the time, if it makes sense. Yeah. So that was like one interesting part, and like why people like just like escape me in every conversation, why they like talk, you know, talk about those things among themselves but not to me. So I guess that was like one of the characteristics of like being scared of like open conflict and like facing the conflict. So yeah, like last time when we attended the Students of Color conference, and we had this session of like with all the characteristics of white supremacy culture, and like there was like all those like bullet points as you see, like perfectionism, sense of urgency, defensiveness, quantity over quality, worship of the written word, which is also like ridiculous, because like if it's not written, if there is no memo, it doesn't exist. So like oftentimes I hear uh like, you know, if something happened, like document it, so like you have to know the date, you have to know like who said what, and like when it happened, what had happened, because like later nobody would trust you if you didn't have that note. This is also interesting because like in my culture, we are like we are storytellers, and like we believe, you know, what people say, instead of having all this bureaucracy system. Well, I guess it's a balance of both, but still, like in here, as I said, like if you don't have it written, like nobody will trust you. So, and one of the problems, like as an immigrant, which I faced when I was new, so like when you get here, like you don't know anyone, you don't have any references, so like I didn't have like credit history, so like nobody would trust me. I didn't have like background check, you know, my background check was clear. So I had problem like finding an apartment, because like I didn't have the history of like residency, and like I didn't have the credit history, which didn't show if I was like, you know, if I could pay them properly. And like for example, in case of my like husband, he also immigrated here with me, so like he couldn't find a job because like he didn't have any references, like he didn't know anyone here, so like there was no one to recommend him. And like that was one of the problems which like most immigrants face. So like basically like you're no one, and there are so many obstacles like on the systematic level, because as I said before, like you want to get a job but you don't have references, so like no one to recommend you, and then but then you want to like get a loan to do something, but nobody gives you a loan, and then you have problem finding an apartment, so you're kind of stuck all alone by like with your own problems. And like when people say like, oh, we don't like immigrants because they just use the welfare, and like they just come and use all our benefits, it's also not true, because you cannot use some of those benefits until you become a citizen. So like until you live here for like 5 years, you don't qualify for most of the benefits.
And can I chime in real quick? And if you have I intended major in business, and while I'm taking some economic classes at Whatcom, during the economic classes, we did address about the immigrants. And in fact, the immigrant helped to expand the economy, is actually creating more jobs than taking it away. So it's been researched and it's been proved that that belief is not true. Like the belief that immigrants take away jobs is not actually true, because the more people in the country, the more buying, the more consumption is happening. So the more jobs have to be created. So yeah, I think I just gonna throw it out there.
Yeah, I'm just checking the chat and like reading all the comments, and thank you so much for like commenting and like like bringing your perspective to the conversation also. Yeah, I've heard about like the HR who kind of like, what do you call it, like scheme or scam through the applications, like by the names, and like they eliminate the ones which are like which has the foreign names also. Oh, I think we should be like ending this session by now and like join the main group. Thank you so much everyone
Thank
for
you so much. I
participating.
really
Yeah.
appreciate this.